What's up, everybody? We're back at it here for another video. I'm really excited about this one. I don't have people on that often. I just feel like maybe I talk too much, and hopefully that's not a problem during today's video, and we're still able to get to your questions at the end. But I'm really excited to have one of Johnny Depp's lawyers, 1 year basically after the verdict in his favor, come on and talk about the process in a way that I don't think we've seen on all the interviews with Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez, who have done kind of the big circuit going on all the different media stations and talking about this case. And we've looked at some of those interviews and we've looked through them together and we've learned a lot through them. But today, I think we're going to get a little bit of a different look behind the scenes from Andrew Crawford, who is a partner at Brown Rudnick with Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez. And he just told me before we started this show that he is one of the two, he and Ben Chu, attorneys that were barred in Virginia and basically local counsel for this case. As you know, Brown Rudnick has offices from everywhere. They brought in lawyers from everywhere. It was a big team. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to ask him what it was like to work with Amber Heard's attorneys and if they had any idea about the insurance battle going on in the background. We're going to talk about social media, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff exploding during the trial, how the team used it, maybe if they were even aware of it. So we're going to dig into some different stuff, hopefully today. We'll talk about some of the team dynamics and what it was like and what the celebration was like and what Johnny Depp was like, sure. But from a lawyer's point of view, which is kind of what this channel is all about, I want to get some of the legal angles and questions answered about this litigation. So hit that like button if you guys haven't already and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in Andrew Crawford. What's up, man?
Hey, Peter. Good to see you, man.
You too. You too. So Andrew and I connected after the trial. He reached out and said that, he appreciated some of the stuff we were doing on the channel, thought it was cool that we were talking about an actual real trial in a way from, somebody who also does this for a living, which was an awesome conversation. And I told him eventually I'm going to have to get you on, and timing worked out now with the 1 year anniversary. So thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be on. Yeah. Like we said in that first conversation, I mean, I'm sure your listeners already know this. This is the place to be for your legal insights, man. I mean, you break it down. You've got some real insight. It's clear you know your way around a courtroom. And in some of the coverage I saw of the trial, we didn't see a ton of it during, but afterwards, I just remember thinking, man, y'all don't have any idea what you're talking about. And Peter, you certainly do. So not that your listeners need any, additional incentive, but this is the place to be, folks.
I appreciate that, man. And I guess we can start there, right? And the conversation is going to kind of go where it goes. So you said you guys weren't watching a ton of it during the trial. Did you know that this explosion of media coverage, especially, the media adjacent coverage with YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all these different people covering, making memes and watching the trial that you were taking part in, did you know that was happening?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right. We certainly knew it was happening. It was hard to escape, right? But, as the attorneys and having cameras in the courtroom, we were getting hundreds of emails a day from folks. So, we got a sense that way of what was trending on social media, what folks were tuned into. Friends and family were certainly talking about it. So, I mean, we were definitely aware of the coverage, but at the same time, we were so busy for those 2 months that it's not like we were sitting back, scrolling through YouTube or TV channels or whatever, taking a look at all the coverage that way.
So every day after a trial, especially one that lasts this long, whatever witnesses happened that day are done, and now you're looking forward and prepping to the next set of witnesses, looking through their depots, fine-tuning whatever the outline is for their direct examination, whatever exhibits you're trying to get in. So you guys don't have time to just sit there and rewatch 8 hours of trial that happened before, right? It's not like you were just sitting there watching yesterday's trial while you're prepping for tomorrow.
That's exactly right, right? I mean, and as you know, trials are fluid, right? So you can go in with a game plan and it can pretty quickly go out the door. And so, we were constantly adapting. We were constantly, adjusting to what was happening in the courtroom each day and, which witness was going to go when, who was going to take that witness, and, just constant shifting of priorities like that. And so, yeah, they're just, you're in court until 5 and we got a little bit crunched on time at the end. So Judge Ascarati kept us till, 5:30 or 6 some of those days. And so, by the time you get back to the hotel, it's 6 or 6:30, you grab a quick bite. And then, you gotta plan for what's going on the next day and the next couple days, right? You need a little bit of foresight there. So there just wasn't enough time for anyone to be consistently monitoring social media.
Yeah,
But
and one of the interesting things was too that I've never had a trial that I've done where you literally have the witness testimony filmed, their reactions, their facial expressions, their answers to questions. Obviously, we can get transcripts, but did you use any of that video going back and trying to watch? Oh, I think I remember a witness saying this, or especially Amber Heard, where there was multiple days of testimony, or even Johnny Depp, multiple days of testimony prepping him or prepping what you guys were going to do to handle other witnesses?
yeah, not really, actually. Probably not as much as you might expect, because it does feel like that could be a benefit, right? But I guess transcripts, right? We weren't necessarily going back and checking facial expressions or things like that. We did get transcripts, daily. And so we would certainly go back and check those as needed. But we weren't so much going back and looking at video and things of that nature, even though, yeah, it does feel like that would have been an option in a trial like this. And maybe there would have been some benefits there. But again, with just how much there was going on, we kind of had to, in a perfect world, we would have been able to do that, but I don't know if there was quite enough time.
Team was big, but I guess
benefit analysis, right?
Right. Team was big, but I guess not that big, right? Not that big to have just somebody sitting there watching all the videos.
Exactly.
So what about finger on the pulse about how everybody kind of publicly was viewing the case? It seemed like, it seemed overly positive for Johnny Depp and negative for Amber Heard, some of which was warranted, some of which I think was based off of maybe some things that they felt about before the trial started, or what they knew about, celebrities before the trial started. Did you guys gain confidence once you started to realize the public was kind of behind Johnny Depp and that's how they were viewing the case?
Yeah, and I'll just speak for myself here, because I actually don't know the answer for sort of the team generally. Sure. That wasn't necessarily the case for me, right? Because like I said, we were aware of some of the outside noise, but not so attuned to it that maybe you all and everyone else were. And so for us, we were in the courtroom, paying attention to what's going on in the courtroom. And, I'm glad that things were sort of favorable for Johnny in the press, but, on a day-to-day basis, when you're just kind of focused on what's in the courtroom and what's coming next, it still felt like a dogfight, right? It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're winning. This is great. It was just, keep grinding. We got to keep going. We got to keep focusing. Long way to go in, what was a 2-month trial rather.
So. Yeah. You never want to get overly confident in a trial. I think you can get lazy and kind of complacent. Some of the best wins I've had, I thought I was losing the whole time. I was like, I don't even know if we have PFSs in Florida where you got to beat it by 25% and you get fees. I'm like, I don't even know if we're going to beat the low PFS, and we blow it out. But it's hard to get too optimistic in trial because it's such a grind every day to stay laser focused, prepping for witnesses, focusing on the issues that you're kind of pushing forward. What's interesting though, in the future, big firm, celebrity clients, celebrity lawyers now, I will say, at least this chat, when we do polls, now sometimes if it's 50-50, 60-40, whatever, we may be on the wrong side, but when they vote on polls, just as kind of a potential juror type of deal, when they're in the 90, 95, 98% on stuff, it is almost always exactly how it ends up going. So it's always really interesting to me to just ask people that are watching the trial, because they're not just, reading a headline, but a lot of them watch you guys every single day for 7 weeks. And they were more confident than even I was that Johnny Depp was going to win. I felt like he was, but I've been in your shoes where it's like, you never know what a jury's going to do. And that's what we always tell our clients.
Yeah, no question, Peter. And I'm glad folks were confident, and I'm glad that there was that much support out here. But yeah, I'll tell you from my perspective, till the very end, I was still nervous, and admittedly, my nickname, and there was one other on the team, same nickname, we were Eeyores, right? I was one of the Eeyores. There was somebody else, right? And every trial team has one, right? Kind of pessimistic, and
Yeah.
it can be an important role on a trial team. You don't want everyone drinking the Kool-Aid. You need different points of view, and here's a weak point. And so, I was always worried, and up until that verdict was read, man, I was stressed about it, and I'm glad folks out here were confident and feeling good, but boy, until we actually heard the verdict, yeah, you just never know what's going to happen, as you know.
Yeah, I mean that's just how it works. Marquetta said today is Johnny Depp's birthday. I didn't even know that. That's pretty wild. What ended up working out? Cool. Love when that happens.
I think it's 60th, so happy. I think it's a big one.
That's awesome. I'm sure he's celebrating.
Yeah.
Kim asked, what about Rob's video on the bed? Was that seen or used? Seemed like it was by the questions asked. So there's a YouTube channel by a guy named Rob called Law and Lumber. He's a lawyer in Virginia. And he did a video about how the bed broke, couldn't have been how Amber Heard explained it. Did you guys see that video?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone saw that specific video, but that certainly seemed to be one of the things that kind of went viral. And I think there was maybe a box cutter or something, some sort of in that picture.
Don't remember it specifically, but
yeah, I mean,
you never know.
I don't remember any specific question that would have been prompted by that video. It's entirely possible, right? Other people contributed questions to the outline. It wasn't just me. But at least as a team, that's not something that we discussed or necessarily saw. So
what about Johnny Depp afterwards, knowing all the public support that he got? It seemed like, I mean, everybody said it wasn't about the money, and it's always not about the money. And obviously he got a much bigger verdict than, I'll just say, the reported settlement. But what was the public support, the change in narrative? What was that like for Johnny Depp once the trial was coming to a close and once it was over and now a year later?
Yeah, I think it meant a tremendous amount to him, right? And for him, this was just about telling his story. I mean, for us behind the scenes, there was a noticeable difference in him from before he went on the stand to after. Even just once he got off the stand and he was able to tell his story the way that he wanted to tell it and the way that it needed to be told, was just a weight off of his chest, it seemed like, from the outside. And certainly to see the support that he's had, I think he's so appreciative of all the support. So, I'm happy we got a good result for him, but I do feel like he just needed to be able to tell his story, and that in itself was sort of a win for him.
Mm-hmm. So one of the other big topics that has come up post-trial, post-settlement is all of these new insurance lawsuits and complaints filed against Amber Heard with Travelers and New York Marine, and who's going to pay for what and whether or not they did their job throughout the litigation. As one of the attorneys on the other side, did you know or could you feel that there was, some arguments going on behind the scenes? Were they trying to block witnesses? Was New York Marine saying, I'm not paying for this, that's too expensive of an expert, or having to set depots with more lawyers from multiple insurance companies? What was it from your guys' end? What could you tell about any of the strife that might have been going on behind the scenes on the other side?
Yeah, I could not tell at all. And it's not to say that maybe other team members weren't more attuned to that. Maybe they were a little more aware. Totally lost on me if that was the case. I mean, we had sort of multiple sets of counsel that we dealt with throughout the course of the trial. And I don't know if insurance companies were making those calls or if Ms. Heard was making those calls or what the deal was there. But I feel like I found out about sort of the insurance stuff at the same time that the general public did when we started seeing these insurance companies fighting with each other. I mean, that was, I feel like, the first I heard of it as well. So it certainly was not something that I was attuned to throughout the course of the litigation. I mean, we were just, we had opposing counsel on the other side, and we were dealing with them on a daily basis, and trying to get the things done that we needed to get done. So I don't know what was going on in the background. Totally lost on me if there were sort of noticeable things that impacted the trial or the litigation in general.
So some of the motions and just throughout the discovery process seemed pretty contentious, and it can get contentious in any case, some more than others, of course. A lot of the general public felt a certain kind of way about Miss Heard's team and about Johnny Depp's team. And even the judge at points seemed to get frustrated with certain members of certain counsel throughout the trial. What was it like throughout the litigation process when you're doing a boring deposition, when you're just having just normal motions, maybe not the ones that get highlighted or that we're putting up on the screen and talking about, on these kinds of channels? Was it generally difficult, and was every single thing a fight? Or was it just kind of here and there like there is in every case?
Yeah. So I think, again, this is one where different members of the team might answer this question differently.
Okay.
So, like any litigation, right? They, as you said, they can be contentious. I got along well with everyone on the other side. I think, in general, some people got along better with others, but overall, I think everyone got along decently well and everyone was professional. There were a lot of fights in this case over things that I'm not sure needed to be fought about. And there was, a level, especially just the discovery disputes, right? I don't know if y'all took any sort of deep dives into the discovery.
We did on a couple of them.
There were like, there were like 700 RFPs or something served. Like that's crazy, right? At some point, they're just repetitive. And like, I was fortunate to only be involved in like meet and confers in a pretty limited capacity. I handled just one or two of them. And the way that I typically handle them is, okay, like we asked for this, here's why we think it's relevant. You said this, I don't think that's right. Like, will you supplement or, whatever? If they say no, I'm like, great, we'll let the court decide. Like, I'm not going to sit there and fight with you for 2 hours about it because there's no point. But my understanding is that some of the discovery discussions got a little bit contentious, and so there was certainly a lot of fighting. But I do think that everyone was very professional, and I certainly got along well with Miss Heard's team in general. They're some good folks, despite maybe some of the portrayals in the media.
Yeah, and I think that is the answer I was expecting. Obviously, I didn't know what the answer was going to be, but there are a couple defense attorneys that, and we can also talk about, like, you don't just do plaintiffs work, right? I mean, you do work for all sorts of different big companies. You're from a big firm, so you work big companies, small companies, individuals, potentially like Johnny Depp. And there are some lawyers. I generally am just the small guy, the David against the Goliath. Generally that's the type of practice that I have. And so there are some defense attorneys that I don't really like the way that they handle their business, but we can still work together perfectly fine. Just like you're saying, I don't ever try to convince the other side of something. If they don't want to do it, we have a judge for that, right? That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we're all human, right? So there are going to be some people that you get along with better than others, and some people you clash with a little more than others, and some styles conflict more than others. So, it's this litigation, I don't think was any different than any other in that respect. So
a couple good questions here from the chat I want to mix in. How was the week break in trial for you? Did you get any downtime, or were you still powering through that the work for trial?
Yeah, the week break was incredible.
I slept. A lifeline?
Yes, I slept for the first time. I mean, boy, really leading up to that trial was just extremely busy, right? From really around the new year, but especially February and March, like those 2 weeks or 2 months rather leading up to the trial were extraordinarily busy, where I don't feel like I got more than like 5 hours of sleep a night max. I mean, we were just all so busy getting prepped for that thing. And then certainly once the trial started, it was, we were going 100 miles an hour. So the week break was amazing. We took those first, probably, at least I did, those first 4 days and just caught up on some sleep, disengaged, tuned into this channel, watched some of this stuff, probably, whatever, caught up on some of the social media going on. But yeah, those definitely a few days to just sort of relax and recharge. And then, we had Miss Heard's cross coming out of that break. So, probably around Wednesday or Thursday, we
back to work.
got back to it in a pretty significant way. But those first few days were really nice.
Belinda asked, did the media comments on the body language between Johnny Depp and Camille Vasquez encourage your team to play that up a bit to get in Amber Heard's head? I always wondered. So I guess there was some talk about how they seemed friendly. I don't know if there was, I mean, obviously people were like making comments about some kind of relationship. That wasn't happening, obviously, from all reports. But as far as just like their chemistry together in the courtroom, as far as she seemed to understand the way he wanted to tell the story and present it to the jury, did that have anything to do with your decisions that you guys made in trial, or anything that was being really reported in the media?
No. And I don't know that Camille was thrilled with some of that
I'm sure
reporting.
not.
I mean, the insinuation that there was something going on between them was, inappropriate and inaccurate. So,
Right.
so it wasn't anything that we decided to play up in any capacity. Whatever chemistry there was very natural, and it was, just a lawyer and a client, right? A
Right.
very normal lawyer client relationship. And Camille is very passionate, and she's a wonderful lawyer. And
And he
that's,
obviously trusted her. I mean, that's the big thing, is he had a lot of trust and was comfortable with her literally being his mouthpiece. I think that's the point with a good attorney-client relationship, is they trust you, they want you to speak on their behalf, and they trust you to speak on their behalf. And it seems like he's got a couple people in his life like that, which I think is really important.
yeah, no question.
Stephanie asks, how did you keep track of all the facts of the case and compared to the info lies at times Amber Heard presented at trial? Was there a spreadsheet, a flow chart, a timeline? So how did you keep track of the facts and then kind of the facts that she told them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We didn't really have a spreadsheet or a flow chart or a timeline or anything like that. It was just kind of it was a decently large team of lawyers and who knew the material really well, right? I mean, it was kind of a unique case in that, we had deposition testimony, we had witness statements from the UK trial, we had lots of, we had testimony from the divorce trial. I mean, there was a lot of, statements out there where she was under oath. And so we just, we had all those transcripts and things, and it was a team that knew the material really well. So there wasn't some central repository of all that information. It was just kind of, we listened to the testimony and we know what's in all these other materials. And so we can kind of just pull things as needed.
And that's all about preparation before the trial starts. You don't wait till the trial starts to learn what the truth is and then compare it, right?
You do not. That's why I said those 2 months leading up to trial and even a few months before that were extremely busy. And a huge part of that is that type of preparation, for sure.
And that's why when we talk about other cases where there are some criminal defendants that complain their lawyer, they haven't talked to their lawyer in 5 months and their trial is supposed to start in a week, how that's just unheard of for people that have prepped for and handled trials appropriately. Just give people a sense, because I know we talked about it a little bit before we started as well. What was your deal on the team? What did you work on? How was the team set up? Did you have individual witnesses that you handled, or was everybody kind of doing everything?
Yeah, everyone was kind of doing everything. I mean, it was a team that worked so incredibly well together throughout the entirety of this case. And I think roles may have shifted some. So I was a little bit less involved, personally, a little bit less involved at the very beginning of the trial. Like I said, Ben and I were both barred in Virginia, the case being in Fairfax. Ben wanted somebody else on the team that was, capable of signing pleadings or, attending court as needed if he was tied up with something. And so at the very beginning, I was kind of limited to a sort of a local counsel role. But certainly as the case progressed, and we had one other person, Ben and I are both in DC. We had one other person in DC that was working on it more substantively. He left pretty shortly after the case started, and I stepped in and took on a much bigger role from there on. And really everyone on that team did everything, right? Discovery and drafting motions, and certainly as we were, taking depositions, and certainly as we were leading up to trial, taking expert depositions, prepping people, taking witnesses, arguing motions. I mean, there was so much to do in those couple months leading up to the trial, and then obviously throughout the trial, that really everyone did everything, and there weren't any egos, right? Like no one was too important for any job. So it was a team that I think worked tremendously well under challenging circumstances. And I just can't imagine going through that with anyone else. I mean, it's just, Peter, as I'm sure you know, any trial is stressful and challenging,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly one that's 7 weeks with that much publicity surrounding it, those are tough circumstances. And so I can't speak highly enough about that group of attorneys and the way that everyone worked together. And there just were never any blowups. There were never any issues. People knew what needed to get done, and we all got it done. So it was really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I think it's great when you have a team and you're all treated like equals, but there is a decision maker. And I think it's important to have a decision maker on every team. My very first trial in private practice was 8 weeks, federal court, and it was just me and my dad and a support staff person. So while it was a team effort and, he was great to me throughout the trial, there was no question who was making decisions. There was no question on, who was doing what or who was carrying the briefcase, as they say. And I handled the witnesses he told me to handle and prepped for those and helped him prep for his. And I think that trust and communication, and again, like you said, not blowing your top because you get mad about something that happened in trial, and realizing it's a fluid situation. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And I think it's really great to hear about a team at a big firm. There are some big firm atmospheres that are horrible. It seems like you guys have a really great atmosphere as far as that goes, from all reports, from as high and low as a person on the team as you can possibly get from all the interviews I've seen.
Yeah, no question. It is. Like I said, and you're absolutely right. It is an incredible team, a great group of people. But you're right. I mean, there are ultimate decision makers, right? And Ben and Camille were sort of those people. And so, but at the same time, there was so much going on at any given time that they simply couldn't make decisions about
They had
everything.
to trust you to do it.
There is a level of trust that they have to have in their team, whether they wanted to or not. And they did, right? They certainly trusted us all. And that's why we were on the team. But they've got to trust us to make some of those decisions, because there's simply too much for them for us to go to them for every little thing and ask their sign off. So, certain big things, they were the ones that ultimately made calls, but, yeah, there was a lot of, a lot of trust placed in the team to get the agreed upon objectives completed.
Sure. No, I think that's really important. That's great to hear. Nicole asks, thanks for joining us and graciously sharing your experience. In retrospect, are there any aspects of the trial you found particularly challenging or would have approached differently?
Oh, man.
It was all challenging is my guess, but what would you approach differently?
There's no doubt it was all challenging. It was a challenging experience, but what a cool one. I mean, I don't mean to gripe. It was really a neat experience, and probably unlike anything else I will ever experience in the rest of my career.
Unlike anything I've ever seen or heard of.
Right. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I remember walking in the first day and seeing like 30 cameras outside the courtroom and a line of 200 people waiting to get in the courtroom. And I was like, wow, this is surreal. And that feeling did not go away over the course of those 7 weeks. So it was really neat, certainly challenging. I don't know if there's anything I would have changed. I mean, there are things that, like I said, the 2 months leading up to that trial, we were really busy with like depositions and stuff. So it would have been nice if we could have spaced those out a little more and given ourselves a little more time in that respect. But honestly, a lot of that was out of our control, right? We were dealing with third parties, trying to coordinate schedules. And so,
I will tell you that is literally a feeling I have every trial. It's like, I
Yeah,
feel like I've got some expert depo. I've taken expert depos in the middle of trial. I'm like, how does this happen? This case is 4 years old. How can we not get this expert deposed before? But it seems like that stuff happens all the time as trial comes up.
always happens, right? And so like in an ideal world, that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, like we're deposing experts like the day before we're arguing like emotional lemonade, like about that expert. I'm like, it's not ideal, but it is what it is, right? You gotta make do. So yeah.
So there are a bunch of questions, kind of similar to Marquetta's, which is there are rumors that Amber's going to do a tell-all book, that, you know, stuff's happening afterwards. She's going to say more stuff or make more claims. Have you guys discussed at all if this were to happen? Do you have a game plan, or are you just kind of waiting and seeing if it does happen, you'll deal with it, cross that bridge when you get there?
Yeah, I think that's one we'll just have to cross the bridge when we get there. I don't know Miss Heard's plans. Not going to speculate on them until if and until something happens. This is going to be my hopefully one sort of caged lawyer response. No comment here.
That's fine with me. Hey, well, you give us what you can, right? Whatever you can.
That's right.
Pat, was it obvious that AH watched social media? So is it obvious that Amber Heard watched social media, given her change in disposition before and after the break? Did you notice anything about her in the courtroom, how she was acting, looking, dressing, whatever it may have been with that 1 week break?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, sitting here a year later, I don't remember.
It's probably a lot you don't remember, honestly. I mean, it's probably better.
There's a lot I don't remember. There's a lot going on. You know, it may have been something that struck me or us at the time, but at the same time, what did it matter, right? She was going to do what she was going to do, and we were going to ask the questions that we were going to ask, and the jury was going to interpret stuff the way that the jury was going to interpret stuff. So if there was a noticeable change, I can't remember if it was something that struck me at the time or not. But I don't think it changed anything about what we were trying to accomplish.
So these two kind of go together. Eliza Line said, Jessica Myers was outstanding and seemed to know the facts of the case inside and out. She did so well with Johnny Depp's direct.
I couldn't agree more. She is such a phenomenal attorney. She knew the case incredibly well. She did an incredibly good job on that direct. Yeah, it was amazing to watch.
And then Azam asked just about all the objections. You know, there were some interesting objections, interesting arguments, interesting rulings. What, if any, from Elaine to get over every leading question, objection? Was it noticeable in the courtroom, or did it really just seem like any other trial as far as that? Once you got going, did you notice anything different about objections while Johnny was on the stand or while Amber was on the stand or at any point throughout the trial, or did it just seem like any other trial to you?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed maybe a few more objections than a lot of trials, right? I think, not that I have a ton of trial experience, but in my limited experience, probably a few more objections. And then Amber's redirect in particular, I mean, Camille was firing off objections quite effectively. Elaine didn't get much out of that redirect, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. So
it was just like one right after the other, and then she's like, "I'm trying here, Judge. I'm trying here."
I know. And look, I feel like we've all been there. I mean, Elaine caught a. You know, she
maybe not right there, but maybe close. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe we don't quite get all the way to where she got, but
I agree. I agree.
What you're saying, though.
Well, and you know, I don't want to speculate too much. I don't know that she was prepared to redirect that day.
Exactly. That was the problem. I think
she maybe had some more time, and she would have had that evening maybe to prepare for redirect the next day. Because it does feel like there's a lot more that she could have covered or at least tried to cover that she just didn't even get to. And so
if you can sit down and think about how you want to go through it, I think it just would have come out and come across a lot differently.
I think that's probably right. And so, look, I mean, Camille's objections were spot on. I mean, they were almost all sustained. And so that redirect probably wasn't great for Amber's team.
I don't think so. We didn't think so on this side. On this side, we did not think it went great for them. Yeah. Ashley asked, what was the biggest surprise for the team during trial? So many memorable things from this trial that we still reference today. Elaine, your mic. So what was most memorable to you from the trial?
Uh, I mean, there are a couple of memorable moments for me, and I don't know if this is the biggest surprise, so I'm switching the question a little bit. One of the most memorable moments for me was Isaac Baruch getting emotional when Elaine was redirecting him, and she said, you're mad at Miss Hurd, aren't you? And he said, I'm not mad. I'm tired. I want them both to heal. And he got very emotional, and I thought that was an incredibly powerful moment, and it gets lost a little bit, I think.
So early.
It was so early, and you have Johnny and Amber coming up after that, and they're obviously the stars of this show. But that was a really powerful moment on day 2 of the trial that I do think gets lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that was extremely memorable to me.
Jess asked, what's the hardest and easiest part of the trial?
What's the hardest and easiest part of the trial?
I'm more interested on, was anything easy? Did anything feel easy in this trial? Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if it's like not your, if it's,
yeah. I like where you were going. If Ben's doing his opening statement that you didn't have to help him prepare for, that was easy for me because I just got to watch him do his opening.
Exactly. Like if it's a witness that I had nothing to do with, and like but really that's just one witness. So the answer to this is like, if I don't have another witness for like 3 days and I haven't prepped any of the witnesses in between, like that's the easy part of the trial where you can just kind of like sit and observe. That didn't happen at any point. So there really wasn't an easy part, and all of it was pretty challenging.
Yeah. I mean, there's almost nothing worse in trial too. Like even then a witness, is going to do well, you prepare them, and then they're getting cross-examined. And it's just like, you just sit there and I'm like sweating under my shirt. I'm just like, I don't know what they're going to say. Please don't say something that you don't mean, or don't answer too quickly or answer too harshly or snap back at the lawyer or whatever it may mean. It's just like, there are so many things you feel like could go wrong. And when they're done, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And then it's on to the next, right?
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just in trial, you have no idea what's going to happen at any given time, whether it's on cross, whether it's on direct, right? With especially with a trial like this, you had lots of objections. Some of them were sustained. So, you got some key piece that you need to get in, and you're dealing with objections. I mean, it's all very fluid. It's all very challenging, no doubt.
V. McWilliams asked, and we're going to go for another maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I don't want to take up too much of your day. How on earth did she, meaning Amber Heard, dress like Johnny Depp almost every day? Did you guys notice that at all in the courtroom, that there were some similarities in the outfits? We were amazed. Thank you for your time and input today. We appreciate it. This type of stuff is obviously going to get picked apart a lot more from people on the outside looking in, because while you are putting papers together, shuffling stuff, stacking notebooks together, we're just sitting there looking at the courtroom like, oh, this is so nice and calm. And you're sitting there stacking everything up for what's about to happen that day. But did you guys notice in the courtroom at all?
Yeah, so I think you're right, Peter. I did not notice that.
Doesn't surprise me.
Maybe once or twice somebody commented on it, and this may have been something that had filtered in from social media at some point. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't anything that I picked up on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just so you know, for when you're on a trial team, for anybody listening, and you're walking in, and we're all sitting there waiting for them to turn the mics on, and we're sitting there listening to the trial. The lawyers aren't just sitting there doing nothing. They are bringing boxes in or briefcases in. They're still talking to the lawyer about the witness that's about to start, or the research they're going to argue because there's some housekeeping issue before the trial starts that day. So it's craziness all across the board from the moment you walk into that courtroom, which is why Andrew probably was not paying attention to what Amber Heard was wearing that day.
Or Johnny, for that matter.
Right, exactly.
What either of them were wearing. So
exactly. So tell me, what does kind of the future look like for you? I know there's a lot of notoriety on this case, but you're probably back to the grind there, working on your cases. Do you have celebrity cases? Do you focus on defamation now? Has this changed the way you practice or your practice areas or anything like that? Or is this truly a one-off for you?
No, I don't think it is a one-off. I mean, It's changed things a little bit, and we're busy. We're definitely starting to get some defamation cases in. We're starting to get some, higher profile stuff in, which is, it's all great. It's all really exciting. The day-to-day hasn't necessarily changed, right? And I still do, a lot of litigation. If you go on our firm's website, I'm actually a government contracts lawyer. So I do pretty much half government contracts and half litigation. I work very closely with Ben on pretty much all of his cases, with the two of us being in DC. So, I've seen, we got a couple of defamation cases going on. So definitely an uptick there, but I don't know that that's necessarily it's certainly not an exclusive focus, right? We've got lots of other stuff, general civil litigation matters going on. We're certainly busy, but yeah, Peter, like you said, I mean, pretty much the day after the trial, things went back to business as usual, right? I mean, I had ignored other cases, not ignored, but
Sure.
pushed other cases off.
Nature of the business.
Right. Nature of the business. I pushed them off for 4 months. And so, we get this verdict on June 1st or whatever it was. And then I have, 10 other cases that I have not paid as much attention to as I should have.
People waiting for your calls, probably.
No doubt. So it was back to business as usual pretty quickly. And it's continued over the course of the last year.
That's awesome, man. A couple more questions and then we'll send you off. Did Johnny not show up for the verdict because he was confident he won or didn't care?
I don't think it's that he didn't care. I don't know that it was necessarily confident that he had won either. I don't know the answer to this. I know that he played a show. I think he played a show or 2 shows in London, in those days around where the verdict was. And I think it was at a venue that was really important to him, that he really wanted to play at. And so I think that is why he wasn't there, but it's a little, I don't want to speculate too much. Johnny would have to answer that one for you.
Sure. So this is kind of a broad question, but I'll try to focus it in. So Damon asked, what was going through everyone's mind during direct, cross, and redirect during the trial? So it was a pretty long trial, a lot of those. So what we'll say is, did you have a specific role, or did they separate, this person took notes during direct, this person took notes during cross, this person took notes during redirect, or did you handle certain witnesses, or how was it kind of broken up with the team?
Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of had, so depending on the witness and how significant they were, there were between sort of 1 and 3 people usually working with a particular witness. And so you have, direct, you got one person, obviously doing the direct, for the most part. Other people are just kind of standing by. For a cross, you got those 1 to 3 attorneys can each be taking notes. I mean, there weren't necessarily defined roles. I mean, obviously the person that does the direct, does the cross, does the redirect. I mean, that's obviously a defined role, but other people were assisting with witnesses. And so, those people would be taking notes, you need to get this in, or, here's a potential, if you're sitting there on cross and your witness is struggling, here's some redirect stuff and scribbling notes and things like that. So there weren't necessarily defined roles. Everyone was just kind of, if it was one of your witnesses, right, you were listening, you were paying attention, and you were doing whatever you needed to do to get that witness across the finish line and get the things that you needed out of that witness, and keep their credibility up.
Belinda asks, was the Kate Moss testimony prepared before, or was it just put together after AH mentioned her? Thanks so much for your insight.
Yeah, it was not prepared before. I just don't want to get into any attorney-client stuff. No, sure. It was not. Okay. It was not prepared. It was not prepared before. Amber
opened the door, and then
right, exactly. Amber opened the door to that, and that's when that
it became relevant at that point. Exactly. Jojo, loving this. Was there a turning point in the trial where you thought, yep, we're going to win? So we talked Eeyore, we talked, stay pessimistic kind of, but were there some certain things that happened in the trial, maybe Johnny Depp's testimony itself, that you're like, we have a chance to win this case. We've got a good chance to win this case.
I'll tell you that I was never I was never like, we're going to win, but my Eeyore mindset started to recede a little bit actually when Amber got on the stand.
Okay. I think I feel the same way. I feel the same way as you, because you say you do a lot of defamation now. Before this case even started, I knew nothing about it. And I'm telling people I've handled 1 or 2 defamation cases. I've evaluated probably 50. They're almost impossible. They're so difficult. It's not something I would ever want to do, frankly. And it's very hard, even if Johnny Depp is correct here and did not abuse her. It's still hard to win. Just because he loses does not mean he's an abusive, horrible person, is what I was trying to tell people before this trial started. So explain why. Why did you turn when Amber Heard was testifying?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just always kind of a he said, she said case, right? I mean, it's hard to prove a negative. It's hard to prove, I didn't abuse her. Always hard to prove a negative. And so it just always felt to me like it was going to come down to their 2 testimonies. And, Johnny was his usual wonderful, authentic self. And, Amber, Miss Heard, I just didn't think was particularly compelling. We were sitting there in the courtroom, and it looked to me like she was kind of forcing tears, and that whether or not the things that happened to her happened or not, that appearance of just trying to almost manipulate the jury like that, I think didn't read well to me. And I don't know if it read well to the jury. I mean, obviously got a favorable result. And so I don't know. I didn't find her testimony to be particularly compelling. And that ultimately for me was what it was going to come down to, I think, in this case. And so when she got up and off the stand, that's when my mindset started to shift a little bit.
I think this was always going to come down to who do they believe. And I mean, frankly, most trials come down to that, is the parties, the plaintiff, the defendant, who are they going to believe? This one was even more so a he said, she said, like you said. And once we heard from Johnny, I thought he did well, but it didn't mean he was going to win, because if she came and she also did well, then you don't know. But once she testified, and a lot of it was not believable to somebody on the outside that doesn't know them. And as you compare things, it's like, that doesn't add up with everything everybody else is saying, and the documents or the pictures. Like they would show a picture and she'd say, my brains were beaten in. And it's like, I can barely tell if there's anything wrong with your face in that picture. So the credibility, I think, was an issue for her while she was on the stand. And I agree with you. I think a lot of people turned that day. And if they could even turn Eeyore, that's a pretty big point in the trial.
No doubt, man.
We're going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you coming on so much. I would love to have you on again sometime. Maybe the next high profile case you have that hits, maybe something else that's similar to Johnny Depp, or the next defamation case, now that you're an expert on it. The next one that pops up, I'd love to have you on again.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'd love to be on again. Maybe we'll get a lawyer, Johnny Depp golf match going. We can broadcast that to everyone.
That is true. We did talk golf, as I do with most people. And there's actually a golf YouTuber I have to tell you about. I can just tell you about him now. Athletic Motion Golf is his YouTube channel. You got to check it out. They give like awesome lessons and tips and stuff. While I was here in Orlando, I swung by their facility. I got a little tune up. So I'm going to be ready. I'm going to take you up on that. And we're going to have to do a home and home.
There you go. I love it.
All right, man. Take it easy. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Peter. See you guys.
All right, folks. That is all we've got for today. That was awesome. That was fun. It's like the second or third time I've talked to Andrew, first time face-to-face and actually talking about stuff with him. Super easy to talk this stuff with people that actually do it in the real world and are just genuinely good and nice and humble people. He wasn't trying to act like the biggest big shot in the world. But I will tell you right now, the dude is a partner at Brown Rudnick. You don't get to be a partner at Brown Rudnick by just like being a nice guy or holding someone's briefcase or, briefing some motion for somebody. Like that's a big deal. That's a huge firm. If you look it up, Ben Chu's a partner, Camille Vasquez is a partner, Andrew Crawford's a partner. So I thought it was really awesome to get that insight and appreciated everything he shared with us. He just kind of gave us the background and what happened. And so I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.